Hello, everybody. Thanks for joining us on our second tribal webinar for this year. Today, we're going to be focusing on transitioning from ArcMap to ArcGIS Pro. And we've got two speakers that will be presenting today, James Sill from Esri, and then also Grant Taimentwa from the Muckleshoot Indian Tribe. If you have questions, please feel free to post questions in the little console for the GoToMeeting. You can see that there's a place that you can put questions. It looks like the left-hand side of the screen or the slide that I've got up there. And then also, we'll be putting out some multiple choice questions throughout the webinar, and they'll look something like what you see on the right side of the slide. And if we have time at the end of the session today, at the end of the webinar, then we'll answer your questions then. Otherwise, we will do kind of like we did last time, where we'll put them in a document and then send out a link to the document so that you can see the answers to the questions that we couldn't answer during the webinar. Thanks again for joining us. I think we're going to have our first polling question. And we'd like to know how many folks are familiar with ArcGIS Pro before we start. And we're going to put that question up for about 15 seconds, and then we'll show the results. Or maybe we aren't going to show the results. Anyway, it looks like more than 50% do know something about Arc Pro, so it's almost 50-50, so which is great. Good for those that do know Pro to learn more about it, and for those of you that don't, you can learn how Pro can help you in your workflows moving forward. So now I'm going to change the presenter and hand it over to James Sill, who will be talking about the technology aspects of ArcGIS Pro.
Thanks, Ann. So yeah, my name is James Sill. I'm a solution engineer who I work with Department of the Interior and the USDA, and I sit in the Broomfield, Colorado office. I'm gonna go ahead and maximize my screen here. And the structure of what I'll talk about is I'm gonna do a few slides, and then I will do some short demonstrations of Pro, mainly in the role as of a web client, but also some tools to ease the transition from ArcMap to ArcGIS Pro, because it's a significant change, and it's good to know how users within your organizations are going to go about transitioning to Pro. So for those in the audience who aren't familiar with Pro, there's a greater than 60% activation rate with all of our users, and the number is ticking up by the day. And as more people activate, more people are switching completely over to Pro from ArcMap. They're transitioning their entire desktop workflows over to Pro, and this is especially true with users who have integrated more fully with WebGIS in their ArcGIS Enterprise. So in January we put out ArcGIS Pro 2.1. So this was a major release in that it offered a whole new group of functionality to ArcGIS Pro. We're slowly transitioning almost all of the functionality from ArcMap into Pro. It's not all there yet. The number, depending on who you talk to, the number is 85 to close to 90% of the functionality of ArcMap is in Pro. Some things will not completely transition over from ArcMap to Pro. The workflows might subtly change, and that's something to be aware of. But with this last release, there's been improvements to the sharing functionality in ArcGIS Pro. Mapping and charting was improved. Layout, the layout user interface was updated. The editing workflows are being transitioned at a faster rate into ArcGIS Pro. There's more geoprocessing tools that have been transitioned over. There's enhancements to the 3D functionality. And the big one to highlight is the image analyst extension. There's a lot of new tools packaged into that image analyst extension. One thing to highlight is a full ortho mapping suite that we now offer as part of the image analyst extension. There's also was improvements with the business analyst extension as well as the utility network management. And there has been a lot of focus from the product team in getting more and more functionality with utility networks and network analysis. ArcGIS Pro represents a large change, and there's greater and greater changes to the workflow than some might know who haven't opened up Pro before. So ArcGIS Pro uses a .aprx file instead of a map document. I'll discuss this a little bit during the demonstration, but this mainly concerns the idea that ArcGIS Pro doesn't operate like ArcMap does. It's the idea of a project. It's project-based. It's the idea of you interact with services, you interact with layers from either your WebGIS or stored on-premise, and you can read in MXDs. You can access your old MXDs that were created in ArcMap. You can access the services and the layers that were involved in those MXDs, but ArcGIS Pro does not save out MXDs. In ArcGIS Pro, a project contains multiple maps, layouts, and tables. The thing to highlight here is that Pro is a 64-bit desktop application. So it is multi-threaded, so you can not only have multiple layouts at once and when you're creating map documents, but you can also have multiple geoprocessing tools running at the same time. When you start ArcGIS Pro, you sign in and you sign into your organization and you can open recent projects. That's that .aptx file, or as a project template, or you can open up a default project with a file geodatabase. For ArcGIS Pro, I think there's always a lot of questions about what's the release cycle and when is certain functionality going to be included in the next release? What tools will be updated? What new capabilities we will offer? And the product team has broken this down into 3 different categories: near term, midterm, and long term. And this can be a bit fuzzy when you first look at it, but the idea is that in the near term, we project this to be from right now. That would be either the midsummer release or the winter 2018-2019 release of Pro. Midterm would push probably into 3 to 4 quarters from now, and long term is more than 4 quarters away. As you can see, the things that are in long term are more complex in their build out. So there's certain things that the development team is just going to need more time in getting in. The things to highlight in the near term that have brought a lot of attention is full motion video is provisionally projected for the summer release. That could be pushed into the fall. Spell check is a big one that's being asked for. So if you are writing a description of a service or a tool that you've authored, we will have spell check functionality embedded in Pro. Batch geoprocessing is another big ask of users who have been using Pro more and more for large processing jobs. With ArcGIS Pro, you can't talk about it without talking about the idea of WebGIS. Pro is designed to be connected directly to your ArcGIS Online or ArcGIS Enterprise organization. Some groups are still using multi-use licenses, but Pro is built with the idea that you inherit your license and the capabilities allotted to you in that license through your single-use your single login to your organization. So when Pro opens up, it prompts you to sign in. You can select the portal that you want to share to. You can select the portal that you want to draw data to. You can also be logged into a portal that you're sharing with and accessing data from while drawing your license from another organization. And I'll show that when I walk through a tour of some of the functionality in Pro. Pro allows you to access information directly from your WebGIS. And what this does is it not only allows you to access that information, but it offers a broader degree of dissemination of your data throughout your organization. So it's a great tool for eliminating the stovepipes and the barriers to sharing your data to a broader audience. You can also share custom tools out of Pro with your enterprise. You can publish geoprocessing services. You can publish raster functions that can be shared to an ArcGIS enterprise organization. And what Pro does is it really allows you to leverage the full analytical power of ArcGIS. ArcGIS in large organizations usually includes ArcGIS Online and ArcGIS Enterprise. And what it does is that it allows access to the full suite of both. Before I get into some common questions, I'll go ahead and open up Pro, and we'll walk through a few things to point out and how Pro looks to the user. So I'll just open up a ArcGIS Pro instance, and as you saw, I have multiple instances running. So now I have all my recent projects available to me. I can open a blank project, which I'll do now, or I can open up template projects that I've built. I'm going to open up a blank project. So as you can see, this is the layout of the base default layout of ArcGIS Pro, how it opens without any data shared into it and without any connection to organization. First, what I'm going to do is I'm going to point out to how you sign into a portal and how you manage your license. First is the license. So this is the licensing page. What this is telling me is I have ArcGIS Pro named user license. I have all of these extensions available to me. And then it also shows me right here where my licensing portal is. So this is my ArcGIS Online organization. It tells me which version I'm running, and it will also tell me if there's an update available to me. And as you see, the most recent upgrade is from yesterday. You can configure your licensing options here. So if you're going to draw your license through ArcGIS Online, you pull your license from this ArcGIS Online tab, or if it's from ArcGIS Enterprise, you pull it from here. For portals, these are all the portals that I've signed into. So the idea is a portal is the place that you're going to draw data from and you're going to share with. So these are web layers, these are services. This is my organizational data. It also allows me access to living atlas layers, base maps. A multitude of different content that your organization has access to can be accessed through these portals. You sign in. I can edit the portal connection. If the address is going to change, I can sign out. I'm going to sign back in. And then you can set a different portal as your active portal. So what this does is this allows that connection to feed data to and from your organization. So I'm connected to this ArcGIS Online organization. The one thing that Pro does by default is it creates a default file geodatabase, and I've just used the default project naming structure. When you open a project, you can change the name from, it says My Project 88 to whatever project is in line with your own naming structure. So I'm going to add some data here. So I'm going to create a new folder connection, and what I'm going to do here is, so say I'm a user who's new to Pro, but I have a multitude of legacy MXDs with services wrapped in them, with different layer files wrapped in, and I want to start transitioning to Pro. So what I can do is I'm going to make a folder connection to my local environment where I have my data stored, this ArcGIS Pro folder, and hit OK. And users of ArcMap will notice some of the concepts are the same, folder connections are still the same. The idea is that you can still connect to your local data if you need it. And a lot of times that is where your data is going to live. It's not going to be shared to an organization, but a lot of your working data could be shared locally, could be on a file system somewhere, and you connect through it here. So I have now access to all of these different files. So I have this maps folder, and I have these MXD documents. And so I'm going to import and open this. And what this is going to do is this is going to create a map document, a map interface within ArcGIS Pro within my project. And it's going to pull in the MXD data. And what it is it's not necessarily accessing just the MXD. It's accessing all the services and the layers that are saved in that MXD. I'm going to import it. And so what this does is this creates a new map document, a map interface, excuse me, within ArcGIS Pro. And you'll see on the side, so now I have, and anybody who's familiar with ArcMap will recognize these exclamation points. These are broken links. So when you pull in an MXD data into ArcGIS Pro, you'll need to correct these. So I'm going to go in and, so you click on the red exclamation point. I'm going to correct this. I'm going to point to the correct layer. And what that does is it also looks in that file for all the other associated layers with these labels. That's the nice thing. You can automate the correction of the paths, and then it loads them all into the map document. So now I have a base map interface that I'm using. So this is where my work is going to be done. I have my layers on the left, kind of like your old table of contents in Pro. These are the active layers in your map. I have access to all of these. Any of them can now be shared within my organization. So now I say I want to share this within a broader group in my GIS organization. I can share this as a web layer. And remember, I'm still connected up here in the upper right hand to my AGOL organization. So I select a name. Let's just roads test. Oh. And here, if anybody's familiar with sharing in AGOL or in ArcGIS Enterprise, the concepts are identical. You summarize your data, you tag it. Tag it. This is a test. And then you decide who in your organization you want to share this to. So I'm going to share this to a group. I have all these groups available to me within my ArcGIS Online organization. Analyze. I don't have a feature template set, but that's not required. And then I hit publish. The nice thing here is, while this is publishing, I can go to my tools, I can open a geoprocessing toolbox, and if I need to work on other data, I can then open up another geoprocessing tool in parallel to what I'm already running. So this is a great time saver. It also allows you to get more work done in a more efficient manner. Because ArcGIS Pro is multi-threaded, because it is it's a higher horsepower engine behind the scenes, you can do more work in a smaller amount of time. So I'm going to cancel this out. And while this is sharing, I'm going to actually, the nice thing about Pro, and one thing that I use a lot, I have multiple projects open at once. Say I have another set of services that I've accessed through my organization that I need to edit, or I need to do multiple layouts of an existing MXD. one nice piece of functionality that we hear a lot about from organizations is, instead of the old data frame idea with ArcMap, where you save out dozens of MXDs when you're creating these map documents that you're going to publish to your organization, you can now create multiple layouts within a single project, and that's really nice, because then these all can now be published and sent out to an organization very seamlessly without having to open up new projects. One piece that I'll briefly discuss, and that I get a lot of questions from, especially in the Department of Interior, is the 3D capabilities. So let's go to this, so that my sharing is complete. I'm going to close this. I'm going to collapse all these layers. So at one of the base maps I have here is a hillshade derived layer, and that's this black and white layer. That's in 2D. And the idea is that traditionally you can only see this in 2D, but with Pro, the 3D capabilities are far greater. In another project, I've opened the same layer in 3D, and now I can use this as a 3D rendering for any 3D editing I want to do, 3D visualization, 3D measurements that I need to conduct. And finally, since ArcGIS Pro is a web client, it is your desktop client to the web, it allows you to do a lot more automation with creating new layers, with deploying new tools to your organization. One really nice piece of functionality that's been added in the last 18 months is this ArcGIS Solutions deploy add-in. So there's the idea of add-ins in ArcGIS Pro, customizations just like there is in ArcMap. They are subtly different in that they're not built on some of the same underlying concepts of ArcObjects. It's a more updated version of .NET. So, but you add them in through an add-in manager behind the scenes. And let's open up this ArcGIS Solutions tool. The nice thing about the Solutions tool is it automates the building of base layers and base attribute tables that can be deployed as template solutions to your organization. Get this to open up. Try it again. Having some technical issues. Pardon me real quick. So from this ArcGIS Solutions tool, it offers different options for deployment. And what you can do is it offers different templates that then can be consumed by apps in your organization, like Collector, like Survey 123, like crowdsourcing apps. So now I've shared a damage assessment layer. These damage assessment layers can now be consumed by a web application like Collector. It can be for going out and doing field collections after natural disaster, after emergency event management. So I'm going to go back to my slide deck real quick. So some common questions that I'll go through really quickly. Is ArcGIS Pro a replacement for ArcMap? The short answer is yes, ArcGIS Pro will eventually replace ArcMap. We will continue to support and maintain ArcMap. However, our focus is making ArcGIS Pro the world's best desktop GIS client. All future development is going into ArcGIS Pro. Patches and support will still exist for ArcMap, but I can't emphasize enough, the new functionality, the new tools, the new great things are all going into ArcGIS Pro. The operating system requirements are higher. The CPU speed is, it needs a hyper-threaded dual core at a minimum, and a quad core is recommended. The platform is a 64-bit engine behind the scenes, and the memory and RAM is 4 gigabytes is recommended, but 8 is optimal, especially if you're going to be doing any 3D editing. 4 gigs of short storage space are, again, recommended, but 8 gigs is recommended. You create a lot more data with ArcGIS Pro. And we support all standard Windows operating systems with ArcGIS Pro. Nope, this is in here twice. And the question I get a lot from users is, can I publish to server from Pro? The short answer is publishing map services directly to a server site is not supported in ArcGIS Pro, and this is a change in workflow for a lot of users. In ArcGIS Pro, you share a web map, and web layers. Web maps and layers are made up of services, just like they were in ArcMap, but they contain additional information that require them in a portal. ArcGIS Pro, you publish to an enterprise server plus portal or ArcGIS Online. Services still get created on your server, but you get more than that. You get an item in your WebGIS that can be consumed through a browser, through a web app, through a mobile app in your organization. ArcGIS Server is a crucial component of ArcGIS Enterprise, and it's the engine behind the scenes, but it's not a standalone ArcGIS. Pro represents the desktop portal into your enterprise GIS, into your web deployed environment. Just real quickly, Pro represents some questions that large GIS organizations need to be asking. One is, what is your enterprise plan for transitioning to Pro? How will your IT and GIS architecture mature to handle the change that ArcGIS Pro represents? And finally, who will be using Pro? Who will benefit the most from it? And this is important because a lot of students in GIS classes in universities right now, their first introduction to GIS is through ArcGIS Pro. They're not using ArcMap. They know of it, but it's not their primary interface with GIS. They're coming out with broader skills than I can say that I did when I was in school. And their idea is that GIS is WebGIS. They go hand in hand, and Pro represents their interface to it. There's a multitude of resources with ArcGIS Pro, and Anne will speak to this more. We have tons of documentation available. The documentation for Pro gets better every day, and there's books, there's classes you can take, and there's a ton of getting started tutorials to ease the transition into ArcGIS Pro. And with that, I will pass it back to Anne.
Excellent. Thank you, James. And I'm going to pass it over to Grant Pimentua, who will be presenting on what they're doing with Pro at the Muckleshoot Indian Tribe.
Okay. Yeah, we've actually, we just started, I guess you could say we just started using Pro recently, and it's still like an ongoing effort. I'm using it full right now. I'm all in it, but it wasn't just something that we picked up and, we decided just to do. It actually started through several steps. So that's what I'm going to talk about, is how we came to that and how we, decided that this is going to be the platform we're going to utilize, and for our power users, our people that are using desktop. So I guess the why we migrated to ArcGIS Professional, or decided to, why we're doing this. The first thing, it was ease of publishing the web services for ArcGIS Enterprise. And I'll go through more of this, each of them, but also data navigation for the ArcGIS Enterprise web services. That was something that, was a factor. And the improved data management for our departments. That's something we've been continually working on and trying to improve that, and especially with project level data where it's it's ungoverned. You call it ungoverned. And I guess the last point there is training. We have an EAP agreement to assist with user training, so that was another factor in deploying ArcGIS Professional and getting it out to within our organization. So for the topic of publishing web services, what we did is basically when I first started, we deployed, we wanted to get this portal and ArcGIS server, which they now call ArcGIS Enterprise. When we first started this up, I was publishing a lot of our web services, feature services, map image services, image services. I was using ArcMap and our catalog, the desktop tools. And we had a gentleman from Esri helping us during this deployment, but we were starting to run into issues on publishing that data, the services. And I was like, I don't know what's going on. And so finally, that's when I started getting into, using Pro. I was like, well, I'll look at the, how to do that from there. And I was actually able to do it more successfully, and it was a lot easier to do that. So that's when I was like, I'm going to try to look into how to, that's kind of what started it, because for me, before we started doing this ArcGIS Enterprise, I was still ArcMap, that was my platform. I was kind of looking at Pro, but I always, a lot of us always say, well, we don't have the time, we're too busy, but, I had to make the time because of that. And I decided, I'm going to do this and learn it. And let's see. Some service had issues publishing. So when I started using Pro, it was just easier, it was just easier interface to publish these services, where ArcMap was really, it was complicated and kind of clunky, and some didn't work. And then from there, we started publishing, I guess, our base data sets. That's what we're doing, is deploying them into our portal, into our enterprise. And this next one, how Pro has helped with data navigation for web services. Right now, it's basically our current plan to access our base GIS data layers and our imagery with web services. We all used to, a lot of us still have it in, shared folder on our server. We put, we sometimes will try to organize that and call it, hydrology, topography, transportation, or whatever, ownership. A lot of us still do that, but in the power users, they'll go there and they'll have a map. A lot of times they forget, especially if they don't use that. But with the web services, while we wanted to go to that model and say, you know what, even your power users, you're going to go through the web services, because people that don't have Pro or ArcMap, they can't get to, if they're using WebGIS, they can't get to those base layers without them being published as web services. So I said, hey, we're just going to have this one thing you can go in and find that data. So yeah, this is what I said on the second topic. And also another issue was, which actually, if I have time, I'll demo that. We had issues with some of the feature services that had multiple data layers. Let's say I have King County, and a lot of their data comes in, they got all these hydrology layers, all these transportation layers, administrative layers, and you try to group them. You can say, well, I'm going to group all these feature layers and I'm going to publish them, and then when they see them, they can see them all they're all grouped. I had issues with that when you bring it into ArcMap. There was issues, and I can demo that. So that was another issue in deciding, what, we're going to start to look at move into Pro, so these users can, won't have those issues, like ArcMap did. There was just the interface in ArcMap to use web services, it's kind of almost not, I don't say shoehorn, but I don't think it's as good as Pro. So that's, in the Pro, I had no issues with the same feature services. I could view them and I could see them. And so that's another issue. That's another reason why we decided, we're going to move to, Pro and try to deploy it. And James already talked about this. The first bullet point is ArcGIS Professional is project-based. It's a container for multiple maps, layouts, folder connections. in database connections. So a lot of our users, our power users have, a lot of folders, and they got them on their network drive, their group drive. They have them on their My Documents, or, they'll have them in their own public drive, on the network, and they're in different locations. And we try to manage that, but a lot of times, we're trying to rein that in. And this is something I think which will help, because it's project based. And, a lot of them would do, like, we all know we have MXDs, and we go, okay, we're going to create this MXD, and then we make a variation of it and create another MXD. And sometimes people will copy those same folders and other data into another subfolder and create a project name and go from there. And another thing, I find this out still, a lot of people, they're all about the shapefile still. People, it's getting them hard to educate them and say, hey, we want to move away from that even after all these years. And some people go, how do we create a geodatabase? How do we do that again? And then, like James showed, when you create a new project, you have a default to just create one. It creates one in there. And that can be their container for, it already has one, and they can start transitioning, if they want to import their shape files or bring them in and export them and put them in there. I showed some of them that, and they were, it helped them with, creating those geodatabases. So, and another thing too is this will help eliminate duplication within departments for base data and project data. Because we still see this. I mean, when people have read-write privileges on their group drive, or for fisheries or wildlife or whatever department, sometimes they find base data out there. Especially King County, you can download that stuff from BLM, from all these agencies, and they'll go, oh yeah, I found this, and they're downloading it, and they use it, and they have a lot of data duplication, which we're trying to clean up here. So that's what we're trying to migrate and say, all the base data, we're going to have a process in place where it's going to be published in web services so other users can see it. And the project data also is to help organize that and help eliminate that, oh, I got this, it's a similar project, and I'm going to create another MXD, I'm going to copy these files over, and showing them that with Pro, you can have multiple maps in there, multiple layouts, and you can bring in these shape files that, you can bring them into your project, your professional project. So, and let's see, and eventually what we want to do, this is kind of what I hope to do, is migrate some of the project data to the data store. And the data stores, this container, you have, if you have it on premise, with ArcGIS Enterprise rather than ArcGIS Online, it's just a database that it stores their content, and when they want to publish something, and James showed that where he shared like a data layer, and then other people, you could see it, in the browser, in their web maps and those things. So that's what I would like to do, is to show users how to publish and share their content through that. They go, well, hey, I got this, data I've been working on, some hydrology layers, shorelines data, GPS data from wildlife. We grab, and I want to publish that. I want to put it in, and we want to share that with everyone. And it's just a lot easier to share those tools. You can say, oh, hey, here, I got this, and I'm going to share with my group, my wildlife group, my fisheries group, or just, there's two of us, my coworker, just us want to see this. So it's really helped improve the data management. It's gonna get, I can just see that it's a lot more capable than ArcMap is. And what is our plan, with this? And what we decided to do with this year is we have a EAP, Esri, it's an Enterprise Advantage program, and I work in the IT department, and we have a budget, and we saw that, a lot of people, they want training, and they would like to get training, but a lot of times there's budgetary constraints, for people. They say, well, I don't have the time, or, I don't have the money, we don't allocate it for this. And so we decided to do is provide training for our desktop users, the people that are using ArcMap, and we wanted to say, hey, you know, what we're going to do is we're going to invest in this. This is part of the tribe. This is something very important for us to move forward with our enterprise GIS. We want to provide you with some tools to do that in training. So the first one, and they talked about this, is migrating from ArcMap to Pro. And that's something we've already had 7 users complete the training, you know, and we have some good feedback about it, and really showing them, you know, how to import it MXD and kind of the difference between the tools, and trying to, you know, they try to compare the two. So that's something that we're doing right now. We've sent 7 people through, and we plan to have more people through that. And I guess our next, which we're using this EAP for, is we're assessing future projects to use Pro for some of the analysis on, you know, some of our projects. An example is in our wildlife department, they have a black bear GPS project, and we're seeing how, you know, we can utilize Pro, you know, some of the tools to do some analysis on a future analysis for something that the project. And fisheries has a fish telemetry project they've been working on with Survey 123. So that's something we're going to also help out with. Oh, and the black bear GPS project that uses Collector, actually. And the last training here is we're going to provide training for right now we have 75 web users in our portal. That's how many people we have signed up right now in there that have accounts in there. And we did one, it's a user workflows for ArcGIS Online organizations, like a 4-hour, you know, class. And we had like 8 people in there so far. And it's kind of like a, you know, just the intro, kind of shows you the interface of WebGIS, some of the tools and everything, and trying to get them, you know, more familiar with it. And the next one is called Intro to GIS using ArcGIS. That one is more like, oh, how do I create a web map? How do I share it? How do I think there's one on, I don't think there's a story map one in there, but there's more to it, and that's something that some people wanted. You know, they go, well, I could see your WebGIS and the tools, but I want to learn how to use them. So that's something we want to do, and that's kind of the whole point of this, having those power users, you know, which we've all have, you know, desktop users, is be the ones that have Pro, but being able to share that information with these people that don't have desktop. And this has really helped us to open that up to a lot of people who, you know, we got 75 people now, you know, on our through using our portal, you know, have portal accounts. So that's a, you know, big step from before. We only had, you know, people would go asking, hey, I want a map, and they, you know, you print a static map or send them a PDF. So that's the old way of doing it. So I guess that concludes that part. But I guess how many minutes do I got here? I just wanted to show like that example of, you know, I was saying the feature services in ArcMap compared to, you know, Pro. And, you know, when you go into ArcMap, there's this, you know, portal, and then you can search. You know, we have our stuff in groups. You know, they got this interface here, you know, that's kind of clunky. It's got this pops up, and this works with ArcGIS Online, and we have these King County base layers, and, you know, you can add them. And when we added a whole group of hydrological base layers, it would only show like the first one in the series, and there was like all this data, and wouldn't only show that first one and only one item in alphabetical order. So, and here's Pro, you know, I grabbed it, and see, this is the difference. It has them all, it shows them all, and then you can change, you know, the symbology, or, you know, you can, if you want to have editing rights on it, you can. So, and then over here, you know, it's the catalog pane for, you know, our base layers, and there, you know, you just, same one, you know, you can King County base layers, and, you know, you just have these feature services, and then if you want to add them, you just, you know, you can add them, add the current map, or you can click and drag it over. And it's just a cleaner interface, you know, for these users. And if you want to get permissions and for groups, you just, you know, add someone to there, and it's just a lot, you know, cleaner for people to get in. And so that's why we're moving in this way, and we're moving all of our base layers into, you know, we're moving them all in here, and our imagery and everything is going to be in portal. You know, it's going to be in our ArcGIS Enterprise. So, and so that's where we're at right now, and we hope to continue. And get more people trained, and but that's our plan, and to have our power users using Pro, and all our web users using through Portal or other tools to analyze and look at the data. So, but any questions?
So far,
Okay.
actually, we don't have any questions, and they're all muted, Grant, so they can't.
Oh, they're all
actually
muted, so they'd
speak.
have to chat, right? They'd have to chat in there.
Yeah.
I see.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, yeah, if anybody has any questions, feel free to put them in the chat window. But thank you, Grant. That was awesome.
Yeah.
It's great to
sure.
know that, yeah, you guys have really adopted that transition. I mean, it obviously is going to take more than, you can't really do that transition overnight. It just takes time. And I think now I will show my screen. I just have a couple of slides that we are gonna just end on. Wanted to let everybody know that we do, have a training. It's the one that Grant mentioned that helps you migrate from ArcMap to ArcGIS Pro. And on the slide here, it's got what the course goals are, what the price is, and some of the upcoming online classes when they'll be. I also wanted to let everybody know that we actually have a training coordinator for tribes at Esri, and it's Justin Ogden. His name and email and phone number at the bottom of the slide. And if you have any questions around training, you can contact Justin. And I know that, if you don't want to write down his contact info, feel free to call or email myself or Noel or John Jika, and we can pass on Justin's information to you. I also wanted to let people know that we've got other webinars that we'll be doing this year. We've got one on June 21st around managing land management, modernizing your land management workflows. One on public works, and then also the last one will be on emergency management. And the link at the bottom of the page, the go.esri.com link, will take you to a landing page that will allow you to look at those webinars and also to access any of our recorded webinars. So we're recording this webinar, and it will be available probably in the next couple of days. And you will all get an email that will let you know when the recording is ready and the link to the recording. And the other thing I wanted to remind everybody about is our Story Map Challenge. So it is back this year for 2018. The contest is open. And hopefully everybody got an email about the contest being open. If you haven't, please email myself or Noel or John Jika. It ends on May 18th. And you can see our prize this year. And it's great. You can get an organizational account for a year or the equivalent in credits, and also up to $2,500 in a training course through Esri Training. So it's a great time to create a story map and make some money to take training on Arc Pro. So the landing page for that is also another go.esri.com link that's at the bottom of the page there. And it'll also help you with some of the different resources on building a story map and some of the other trainings that will be available. And I think we have one more polling question that we'll put out there for about 20 seconds, and you guys let me know if you're planning on migrating to Pro, and that would be great. Looks like there are quite a few of you that are definitely planning to go to Pro, which is great. And again, if you've got any questions, please let us know. You can respond to Noel's original email that announced the webinar. We'd be happy to answer any questions. And thanks again for joining, and we hope to see you in our upcoming webinars.
Oh, can I say something, man, really quick? I forgot to mention this, like, really quickly before you close.
Sure.
Sure. In my experience, you know, with especially with a lot of users too, and I'm sure all of you, if you're desktop users, is that in order to utilize Pro, you have to start using it and transition over if you plan to do that, and just use it, even if you go to training, because it's really, people will say, I just want to use ArcMap, I'm gonna stick to that, but the only way to use it and learn it is to just use it, get familiar with it, and it gets easier. Then eventually you'll see the benefits of it. So that's what that's what I just wanted to say, is you got to use it every day and transition over. Wean yourself off. That's all I want to say.
Hey, Grant, it's super important, and it's something I think it can't be emphasized enough. If you're have it on the roadmap to transition, diving in is the best way, because once you start using it every day, you realize the full capabilities that it offers. So.
Yeah, you just got to commit to it and do it. Thanks for those comments. Appreciate it, Grant and James. Okay, thanks again, all of you. And also, I wanted to add, if anybody is interested in a user conference pass, feel free to let me know. We've still got a couple left. And if you know of anybody that needs a pass, feel free to have them send me an email. Thanks again, and hope you enjoy the rest of your day.